Before we begin this video, I'd like to warn everyone first. Spoiler alert. There's going to be spoilers in this. Spoilers. 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 You've been warned. Hello everyone, welcome back to not necessarily Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but it is review. So basically, I said this is going to be coming relatively soon. I usually try to keep reviews down to a week after I beat the game, but it kind of tends to be a little bit longer, especially since I just perfected it and I kind of needed a break from it. But with that being said, let's just hop right to it. Basically, I'll just go into the pros first and then the cons and then give my overall rating and explain why, like a brief summary explaining why I gave it that rating. But with that being said, let's start with the pros. So, right off the bat, the combat has been improved right away, and I can definitely tell it's been improved. Now, it's some repetition with the combat. It takes a lot from Origins, and you can tell a lot of it is from Origins. A lot of the cinematic kills at the very end when you kill the last person, you have a cinematic kill. You can tell it's from Origins. I recognize it from that. But that being said, you get a variety of equipment as well. You get a bunch of armor and a bunch of gear you can use that really does help you out. And if you use the full set, it actually it gives you a perk. So that being said, that also helps. In the legendary gear, there's a lot of it, so I recommend using that as well. In terms of the weapon variety, there are a lot of weapons too. You can use swords, spears, axes, maces, knives. Those are just what's coming. Bows, obviously, bows are coming back. So that's also nice too. You got a variety of weapons and equipment. There's also the skill tree, which the skill tree has been slightly improved upon. It's better, I guess, in a sense. Some things that were originally equipment are now perks. So that is kind of nice, like the arrows, the predator arrows, the hunter arrows, and all the multi-shots. Those all used to be separate bows you had to use, and now it's all just perks, and they're different arrows you use instead. So that was actually a little bit nicer as well. So I tried to stay clear from the naval combat in terms of watching it before the game came out, because when I first played Assassin's Creed 4, I thought Assassin's Creed 4 was really drowned into beat into the game, and that's obvious because it's a pirate game. However, Assassin's Creed 4 was way more a pirate game than an Assassin's Creed game. It was not an Assassin's Creed game by any means. It barely was. I'm not saying it wasn't a bad game, but Assassin's Creed 4 was a better game than most of the series, except for with the exceptions of Brotherhood and 2, in my opinion at least. That 4 was pretty good, but I was skeptical on the combat and the naval combat, so I avoided it. And I gotta say, going into the game and playing the naval combat in the game, it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I kind of didn't take the time to look at it beforehand, because it really surprised me on how good it actually was in the game. And I gotta say, it was beautiful. It was a lot of fun to use. Became quickly one of my favorite aspects to do in this game. With that being said, there's also, we're going to go a little bit into the world. So there are big cities, and I really enjoyed that considering it's ancient Greece. You have Athens, Sparta, which Sparta's not that big, but you have Athens, Sparta, Thebes, Corinth, Argos, and those are the 5 that come off my hand right off the bat. Now, it was a little disappointing we didn't get certain cities like Rhodes or Thessalonica. It would have been cooler if we got some of those, but nevertheless, it was nice still. See, Athens is massive, by all means. Athens is huge, and that was great. Sparta, I'm glad they did make smaller, because Sparta historically was not huge. It was very small. Now, Corinth and Argos are in there. They fit perfectly in there. Made sense, everything like that. Thebes was really not touched upon. It really did not put any emphasis on Thebes, and it's worth mentioning that, yeah, despite Thebes is surrender to the Persians, they did not fight the Persians during the Persian War. I gotta say, it wasn't looked down upon. You know, each city-state did what they had to do, and Thebes was part of the Peloponnesian League, and it was a strong ally of the Peloponnesian League. It was the main powers of the Peloponnesian League was definitely Sparta at the top, but then it was Corinth and Thebes right there. So I don't like how they really downplayed Thebes' importance in here. With that being said, though, it is a full world. You can go around. It's full life. You have trees, you have birds, you have animals, deer, bears, or boars, wolves, dogs, everything, cats, lions, dolphins, sharks. There's a wide range of animals, and it is a very full world. There's going to be a little bit more about that later on. That's actually going to be a con, but nevertheless, it was a full world. It was different. It was nicer compared to Origins, which is just literally was an empty desert. It wasn't as good as I would necessarily like it to be, because when you have an empty desert, there's nothing there. It's a desert. It's sand. It's dead, and it was not alive at all. And with that being said, they tried to fill it with a bunch of things, but it was very, very repetitive in Origins. And here, the world is just very alive, and it felt nice. It was a nice refresher. So they made this more RPG, and again, this will be something that will go into the cons as well. This game was very RPG-like, more so than previous Assassin's Creed games. You had dialogue options, romance options. Some of your decisions actually mattered in a sense, and we'll get more into that later as well. But it was more RPG than any other Assassin's Creed, and it's been out there. And that is the direction I believe the franchise needs to go if they want to keep going and being somewhat successful. Because obviously the Game of Year traditional Assassin's Creed model really got old very quick, and they needed to do something to change it up. And this seems to be working to somewhat of an extent. This is the first Assassin's Creed game I actually enjoyed since probably 4. I disliked Rogue. I disliked Syndicate. It's not like I disliked Syndicate. I got bored of Syndicate very quickly. I liked Unity, but I played it post-patch, so I didn't play it during the patch. And I know Unity gets a lot of criticism because of how buggy and how glitchy it was. I didn't play it during that aspect, so I don't really judge it at that time. So I don't really give an opinion of it. But nevertheless, I thought Syndicate was boring. I thought Rogue sucked. 3 was not good. 3 had a good time period, but it was boring. Then they had the 3 platformers, which I got 2 of them for free, but they were all boring because they were free for a month, and they were all boring. Origins was very mediocre. I didn't consider it anything special or anything new and improved. In a sense, you had different things, but necessarily it was still an Assassin's Creed game. You can definitely tell that. I have a review on that on my channel. You can go check that out. But this was a game I actually did enjoy for the first time in many Assassin's Creed games, and this is someone who loves Assassin's Creed. I played 1. My opinions on 1 are pretty mutual. Don't hate it, don't like it. That's because I went back to it. The controls are very wonky, and it's a good storyline, but the controls are just really wonky. But 2 I loved. Brotherhood I loved. Revelations, good place, like good time place where it takes place. Terrible game. The story is really dumb, in my opinion. 3, again, great location, terrible story, and very dry characters. 4 was pretty good. Rogue sucked, and then you know my opinions from there. But nevertheless, I'm glad they took the RPG stance on this, but they didn't do it enough, in my opinion. Like I said earlier, we'll get more into that. So there was a wide range of good characters. Hippocrates, Socrates, Brasidas, Marini, Herodotus, Barnabas, Pericles, Nicolaus. They were all very, very good characters. There are many more characters. I just don't want to keep going on and listing names. But that being said, there are a lot of good characters in this game that were they had good voice actors. They had good actions, good involvements in the story, and they felt real. They felt close to. They were historically accurate. Like I liked Hippocrates and Socrates. They really did them proud in terms of being historically accurate, and I really appreciate that. Herodotus as well. Herodotus being the father of history, being one of the first historians, if not the first, to ever exist, I guess. Hippocrates being the father of medicine, and then Socrates obviously is known for his philosophy. We don't know if he actually existed though, historically. Plato did all his writing for him. But I gotta say, they definitely have improved on the modern day, and the only reason I can say they improved on the modern day stuff is because the modern day stuff probably takes up a total of 45 minutes. Thank you. I hate the modern day stuff in every single Assassin's Creed. It's so dumb. It is super dumb, and I'm so glad they limited it down and they didn't bog you down and force you to keep doing the modern day stuff, because the modern day stuff always sucked. And it's very limited here, and it was very nice that I didn't get bogged down. I was able to just sit down and enjoy the Assassin's Creed game for what it was. Odyssey. It's your journey through the Greek period during the Peloponnesian War. I like that. Lastly, on the pros, I gotta say the mercenary system, which can get it a bit repetitive, but the mercenary system was nice. It was kind of a nice touch on the Nemesis system from Middle Earth: Shadow of War. Kind of a nice nod to that. There's not too much I could say on the mercenary system. It's very easy to climb. All you gotta do is kill a mercenary ahead of you, and you move up, or recruit them. Which the recruitment was nice in this game too. You get to recruit your lieutenants for your ship. But that being said, the mercenary system was very base. It wasn't that creative in my opinion, so that's why it's very ordinary, but it was a nice little touch they added into the game. But now we can transition into the cons. So, wow, where to start? There's a lot of cons for this game. Maybe a few more than the pros, but right off the bat, I noticed the voice acting in this game was atrocious. Marcos especially is by far one of the worst characters I've ever heard in this game. It was totally... I wanted to bash my face into a wall every time he talked. Alexios, every time he spoke, it sounded like he was trying to ask a question, or he wasn't sure about the things he was saying. Like, he'd say a statement, not too sure if he was right on the statement, or you'd ask a question, like, unsure if it was a question or not, and it was just... It's like that throughout most of the game, and it's not like that with some of the good characters. It's a really hit or miss. Like, the characters I listed off as being good were great at that aspect, but a lot of the characters in this game really just sounded terrible. Especially the people that weren't the main characters. If you were not a main character, if you were a side character or just some NPC, whatever, it looked like they said, "Hey, we'll pay you $50 if you come down to just record a couple lines and do your best Greek accent." It was terrible by far. It was just so bad, and I don't know what happened because I thought Origins was very good on the voice acting, so I don't know why they just decided that let's go cheap on this. But I don't know if they did go cheap, but the voice acting was atrocious. It was terrible. So next we have frame rate lag, and this is something I'm going to touch a little bit because there were moments where literally the game would move a frame by frame by frame and skip in between frames, and it would lag considerably bad. And I definitely did notice that was an issue. It happened a handful of times, not all the time, but it was something noticeable that would stop me in my tracks. Another big issue I had, this game was predictable. It was very, very predictable. I guessed who the bad guy was, the ghost of Cosmos. I guessed who it was the moment I met them. So, that being said, it was incredibly annoying, the fact that I was just like, oh, well, you meet Especia, and the way she talked and the way she portrayed herself, I was like, she's the bad guy. No doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. And I called it too, and I let it be known, and I was right, and it did not... I don't know if they intended on it, but it was just terribly bad. The hints gave it away totally as well. I was already sketched out about her, and then when I got my first hint about her, it was like, she controls Athenian politics. I was like, well, clearly she's wearing a female outfit of the cultists, so she's a female. Secondly, the only person that controls Athens at this moment is Pericles, and the only person we know that's related to Pericles that would have any form of influence on him that's a woman would be Especia. And so it's like, well, just narrowed it down, found out who the bad guy was, or girl at this instance, but still, very annoying. Very, very annoying how predictable that game was. So earlier I said it was a full world. Whew, just because you have a full world doesn't mean you have an entertaining world. It was a very boring open world. So it's very repetitive. That kind of leads into the next one. It's very repetitive. It's the same things. There's, like, I don't know why Assassin's Creed has all the question marks. Oh, go here, do that, do this, do that. It's either a base of bandits, one faction, the cult of Ares, the cult of Cosmos, or the women of Artemis. I can't remember what they're called. Them. It's either that or then it's go to cave, clear out said animal, kill said alpha animal, or just loot the place. And honestly, it's so I basically narrowed it down to three things. It was go here, kill all these people, go here, kill these animals, or go here and loot said treasure. And to me, it's like, yeah, you might put a lot of this in a game, but it's very repetitive. I'm the kind of person that got to each region and had to do every question mark in that region, thinking it was going to be a trophy at the end. It's not, by the way. And that's the reason it took me so long to do anything, because I thought these things would be important, and they're not. They're just there to be there. And it was very repetitive and very annoying, in my opinion. So the open world, it got very boring, because it's just the same thing over and 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 over again. And it didn't provide me with any satisfaction, at least, like... It gave me satisfaction at the beginning when I first played it, and then at the very end when I was done, and I was like, oh, fuck, yes, I don't have to do anything anymore. So there was that. That being said, too, bad bosses. The bosses are terrible. Any of the main bosses, part of the storyline, very easy, very boring. They're just I can't say they're bullet sponges. They're just sword sponges or arrow sponges in this game, because you just gotta hit them. They're damage sponges. You just gotta hit them a lot, and they have a very predictable pattern, so that was easy. So yeah, boss is very boring. I guess you could say the Medusa, the Sphinx, the Cyclops, and oh god, who's the last one? The Minotaur. Let's see, it's the first one. The Minotaur were bosses in this game, but again, once you learn their patterns, they're super easy. The Minotaur, once I learned the pattern, I killed them no problem. Same with the Cyclops. Medusa, it took a long time, but Medusa's easy too. The Sphinx, you don't even have to fight. You can kind of just answer her riddles, and boom, you're done. And the riddles are very easy as well. And now we're going to go into the RPG parts. So the RPG side of the game, now I said it was RPG-ish, and I complimented some parts of that. However, there's not enough dialogue options. The dialogue options you get are very limiting, and they aren't broad enough. They're too broad. I would click something thinking, oh, this is obviously the one I want to use, and they would be like an answer I never even expected them to use. Like the answer would be sarcastic or smartass or really just arrogant sounding or cocky, I guess. And it was like, I didn't expect that to sound like that. Why would you make me sound like that? I don't want to sound like that. So they weren't broad enough. They need to really show what was going to be what when you said it, and I thought that was an issue with that. It is semi-flushed out romances too, so romances mean nothing in this game. It's just a trophy. There are a series of missions that go with a bunch of romance options that don't mean anything, that don't do anything, they don't impact the storyline, they don't impact anything. They're just there to be there, with the exception of Roxana, who can become a lieutenant on your ship, who's actually a pretty good lieutenant, and I kept her on my ship during the entire thing. With that being said, Odessa's also one, but Odessa's not a legendary. Roxana is, and that's why I kept Roxana. But it's very simplistic. The romance options don't do anything. If you don't do one for the trophy and that's it, or the achievement, decisions hardly do anything as well. And I say hardly do anything because you have the big decisions, obviously, of whether or not you should kill Nikolaos, or whether or not you should fight Centaur, whether or not you should kill Deimos. So like those are the big decisions that do things and impact things. But things like whether or not you should kill the sick family on Kefalonia, whether you do or don't, it does not impact the story at all. If you do, there won't be a plague on Kefalonia. If you don't, there'll be a plague on Kefalonia. So it doesn't do anything to the story. So that was very just, wow, okay, that was not worth it either. So the decisions need to be more fleshed out. There's very one-dimensional villains in this game as well. Especia is very boring. She's very typical Templar, esque type villain that, oh, we need to provide order and stability to a broken world, blah blah blah. Okay, same with every other Templar. Make me believe that what you're doing is correct. Hatham is a good example of this. Hatham actually was one of the more believable characters in terms of whether or not they were doing something for the right cause. But when you bring a character like Especia in, who's very one-dimensional, it's very boring. Same with Cleon. Cleon's the same way. You can kind of tell he's going to be a bad guy very early on. Just the way they make him. And Cleon is not a bad guy historically. He was a general of Athens, and I don't know why they made it so Pericles is the leader of Athens, which I'll discuss the historical inaccuracy of this game later, but Cleon was a general of Athens. There were 8 generals of Athens. Pericles was one of them, and Cleon was another one of them. They each had the same amount of power. Maybe one had more influence, but they make it seem like that Pericles is like the prime minister, the president, or even a tyrant over Athens, when in reality he's not. It's not at all. And Cleon, same way, they make Cleon, when he takes over, he's the new guy in charge, the new president, the new tyrant, the new dictator. No, again, he wasn't. He was just one of the 8 generals, and he was actually one of the generals that was winning the war, hence why it is in there. The game spoils itself too, which pissed me right off. The game told me that Cleon was a cultist before I even uncovered that he was a cultist. So when I was searching for all the question marks in the game, I was found a sunken ship. When I got one of the sunken ships, I unlocked a crew skin that was of the Cult of Cosmos, and it was like, well, once Cleon died, all his supporters decided they had to join somebody, and then it's like, well, clearly this is a Cult of Cosmos skin, and that you said when Cleon died they had to find someone, so you just told me that Cleon was one of the people. First of all, what the hell? Second of all, what the hell? You just spoiled your own game for me. That really upset me in a way that made me not want to continue on, but I obviously was so close to being done and so close to platinum trophying it that I was like, might as well. Way to spoil the game on me, though. So, kind of going into the bad characters, I went into the good characters, now towards the bad ones. Especia, by far. Oh my god, one of the worst characters of this game. Then there's Marcos, who is the worst character of this game. Oh god. And the decisions that Marcos makes me do, I totally left Marcos to hang. In his side quest, where he's like, you gotta help me again. What the fuck has he ever done for me other than being annoying? I let him deal with his own shit. Cleon, very one-dimensional. Stentor, very one-dimensional as well. Not explored as well. Demos, I thought, whether or not who it is, it's very one-dimensional too. They don't have any sort of redeeming quality until the very, very end. Maybe. They're just a really bad, overpowered bad guy. That's not even overpowered. They're just a really bad guy who does bad things, and that is it. That's all they do, and it's so annoying. It's like, well, there's no redeeming qualities. Even if they redeem themselves by becoming good, it's not even fulfilling in the way they do it. It's very lackluster. It's very pointless. The character gender, whether or not you choose to be a male or female at the beginning of the game, does not impact the story at all. I thought it would be cool if they like, oh, when you pick Alexios, you go to Kefalonia, but when you pick Cassandra, you're on the Pirate Islands. That would be cool, because it makes sense, because now it gives you a reason to play as one character or another. With the exception of you have your good ending and your bad ending, you have a reason to replay it. But if I want to get the bad ending, I can just replay the bad decisions. I don't have to go back that far. But it's like it's just so pointless. It's so dumb the way they made it seem like a big deal. You could choose this, but it does not impact the story any bit, and that annoyed me. I guess the last thing that was always on my nerves, there's no end to the war. You can't finish the war. Oh yeah, and there's the historical accuracy part, but you can't end the war, and I get that's for replayability if you ever want to just replay it, but you can't end the war. There are missions you have to grind out to get the final battle between Athens and Sparta. You have to go and collect the badges of I'm gonna fail at thinking of the name. Something marks. Jesus, hang on. pole marks. That's what they are. You have to collect the pole mark symbols that you killed all the like 3 pole marks. You have to do this 5 separate times for each side. Granted, there weren't even pole marks on the Athenian side. It wasn't that organized. The Spartans had pole marks. The Athenians did not. So that was kind of annoying. But you had to go collect those, and then it goes up. We either side with Demosthenes on Athens, or you side with Lysander on the Spartan side. Which Lysander they portray as an absolute douche canoe, which is really annoying because it's, again, we don't know too much about Lysander. I think it's unfair to portray him in such a way. Demosthenes is seen as this, I fight for peace and honor and Athena, and I fight to preserve freedom. And Lysander's like, I fight to just kill Athenians. And it's like, no, that's really just, in my sense, in a sense, biased, and it does not portray out well. I didn't want to side with Lysander at all, but it's like part of me did at the same time, because Lysander is the reason Sparta won the war. I mean, he was very charismatic. He was a very good person at governing and ruling and being a military leader. He was the leader of occupied territories after they won the war. So, in terms of historical accuracy, because Assassin's Creed is one of those companies that prides itself on its historical accuracy. Okay, so again, I started out with the Thebes thing. Thebes is very is not portrayed in a good light. It's portrayed as if it's a city that didn't do much, when in reality Thebes played a big role in the Peloponnesian War. The organization of the Athenian military was not very strong. The representation, or the idea that the Athenians in this game actually stood a chance against Spartans in the field was kind of funny, because the reason Pericles barricaded and held up in Athens and put all his forces back in Athens, he basically, I'm trying to think of the right word for this, he basically didn't fight the Spartans on the open field because they couldn't win. The Spartans were too good at that. And it's no discredit to the Athenian military at this time, but you got to remember that the Spartans had nothing else but fighting and war. It's what they did. They're not the first standing army in the world. We don't consider that. We consider Rome being the first standing army in the world. The only reason, again, why we say this is because there were other things to do in in Rome. But that being said, the Spartans were good at fighting, and that's because that's all they did was fight. There was nothing else to do in Sparta. So with that being said, the Athenians, when they couldn't handle Spartans on the open field, they would just simply retreated into Athens, and they didn't fight them in the open field. They were a naval power. They had a more dominant navy, and that showed during the naval battles. They won naval battles. So the idea and the concept that Athens was able to hold its own against Sparta in the open field wasn't necessarily true. There were some undecisive battles, but for the most part, Sparta won the open fields, and that's why this part of the war, the Peloponnesian War, goes into 3 phases. It's the Academian League. After King Archidemos, he goes on basically and just wages war against Athens and cuts. It's the reason the plague was so devastating in Athens, because year after year, since the Athenians couldn't fight in open field against the Spartans, they would just go and raid their crops and raid their towns and villages and cities, and it wore down the Athenians essentially. And then there was a second phase where the Athenians tried to help fight a war against Syracuse in Sicily. I don't remember the city they were supporting, but Sparta was actually eventually asked. Syracuse asked Sparta for help, and they came in, and Sparta won the war. Now, third phase is where things get kind of weird. Sparta negotiates an alliance, and it was Lysander who negotiated this alliance with the Persians, and the Persians gave their navy to the Spartans, and that's when Athens basically loses its naval dominance. And Sparta had a navy, but it wasn't as good as Athens. And so that being said, Athens just couldn't keep up, and they would eventually lose the war. And when Lysander dies, they lose those contacts in Persia and a lot of their other allies, because Lysander dies of, I think, natural causes, but he was a big contact there. He was a very charismatic person, and the way they portray him in this game is terrible. They do just Demosthenes relatively well. He eventually gets ostracized during the time of Alexander the Great's father, Philip II, but that's besides the point. Sorry, it's either that he gets ostracized during that or during the 30 Tyrants. I'm not really positive in there. The 30 Tyrants is what took over Athens after Athens collapsed. So there's that, and again, there's the way they portray characters, obviously for the sake of the storyline, Cleon and Pericles. I don't judge that because of the way they were trying to orchestrate the story, but it's the portrayal of characters like Brasidas and Lysander, Demosthenes, characters like that I think aren't done the justice they deserve. Now, Brasidas is done very well in this game in terms of how good of a character he is. He's done very well. He's a good voice actor. He does good interactions with the character, with either Alexios or Cassandra. But overall, it's very. He was one of the leading generals during the first phase, and basically one of the main reasons that Sparta and Athens came to a peace during the first phase of the war. Granted, yes, Athens was suffering a lot, but Sparta was favored as well. But one of the reasons they also wanted to stop is because they were kind of getting sick of fighting. Cleon dies, which was the major general fighting in Athens, and then Brasidas dies, who was one of the major generals in Sparta. So it was like they were kind of sick of fighting, but Athens was losing dramatically. With that being said, the very end, to give this game a rating, honestly, I gave it, I think, an 8.5 in the original credit scene, the video. Looking back on it, and going over all of this and kind of covering this, I went over, like 31 minutes of stuff. Looking back on it, I'm going to have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's very average. It's one of the better of the Assassin's Creed games. If I had to rank it in terms of games, I would say Brotherhood, 4, 2, then Odyssey. And everything else in between. But that being said, one of the better games. I don't think it does. I think it does a lot better than a lot of the previous games, but I just think it needs a lot of work still, the franchise. I think it needs to, if it's going to commit to this RPG standard, it needs to fully commit. It can't hold back on some stances. Fully commit to it. Don't just hold back. Go. Just go. That's all I have to say for that. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. What did I miss? What did I do well on? What do you guys disagree or agree with my thoughts? This is my personal review of the game. It's not like a bias in any situation. I'm a person who loves Assassin's Creed. It was a great time period. It was great, and everything. It was just a very average game. It wasn't a game that stood out to me. It's not a game I'm gonna go back and gotta play the whole game over again. It's a game that was very average. I had a lot of fun doing it. I platinum trophied it, but it's not a game I'm gonna be. I gotta brave about. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys please consider liking and subscribing in the future. So, see you around. Peace.